Good afternoon. Welcome to the WRASAP Network quarterly meeting. Today we will be learning about cultivating resilience, the mini grant projects in action. So we'll hear about two different projects that were funded through the WRASAP mini grant program. Start off, my name is Esmeralda and I am at the University of California, Davis with the Agribility program. We are in charge of putting this network quarterly meetings together for the WRASAP network so that we have a space where we can share some of the initiatives that different partners are taking on across the West to reduce farm stress. Our presenters from today will be two mini grant recipients. First, we'll have Renee Rachel Baker from Nene's Living Food, and then we will also have Darla Tyler McSherry from Ask and Ernest. These are two projects that received funding through the mini grant process. And then first, we'll start off with a little bit of background from WRASAP. What is WRASAP, right? So WRASAP stands for Western Regional Agricultural Stress Assistance Partnership. Our mission is to assist farmers to reduce farm stress. It is funded under the USDA NIFA Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network grant that establishes regional networks that connect agricultural producers. This includes farmers, ranchers, agricultural workers, and other in agricultural related occupations with resources to assist them in times of stress. As we know, stressors are only growing day by day, so we have a lot of work to do in this area. There are 4 U.S. regional programs. We are the one for the West. And our program, the WRASAP partnership, has 4 main initiatives: a clearinghouse, mini grants programs, call staff expansion, and a network objective. These have been changing as the program has moved forward, but it's just an ever-evolving program to try to tackle evolving farm stressors. Okay. So these are the 13 states and 4 territories that the program covers. So we have partners all around this area doing different initiatives because we understand that the stressors in one state may be different than another one, depending on the farming production or the stressors that might be there. So like I mentioned, WRASAP has a lot of partners. We currently have 17 partners that are signed across the West. Some of them include Montana State University, University of Idaho, the AgriSafe Network, the University of Guam, a lot of Agribility partners in different states. And through the mini grants program, we're able to add additional partners that may be doing more niche work in their states and territories. So the WRASAP network meetings are for stakeholders to be able to build connections and collaboration to assist agricultural producers in times of stress. And another goal is to improve behavioral health awareness, literacy, and outcomes for agricultural producers, their families, and communities. In this space, collaborators present their efforts and offer opportunities to pose questions and bring experiences to the table. We want to learn from one another. That's something that's very important to us. And the meeting is open to the publics and external partners. We also really encourage those that are thinking about applying for a mini grant to join some of these meetings so that they can get a little bit of background of what it is that we're doing across the West and how their program can be integrated into the mission to reduce farm stress. Our agenda for today, we'll start off with an introduction. We'll do our classical icebreaker where we'll get a chance to speak to one another. Then we'll go into the presentations from our mini grant recipients, and then we'll do quick announcements and then closing. So to start off, we are going to dive into our icebreaker. So Angelina's going to put us into different groups so that we can have a conversation with somebody else in the meeting today. So please share your name, your agency, and your role. If you're not with an agency, you can say what community you're from and what interests you into this meeting. And we always kind of try to tackle one question. For today, I have selected a card from the Mental Wellness Conversation curriculum. This is a curriculum that Montana State University designed in order to get creative about ways to have a conversation around farm stress. And one of the cards is the Q, and the Q question that we have is, what technique is your go-to calming down when you are in a stressful situation? So in your groups, give you an introduction of yourself and then respond to this question. What technique is your go-to calming down when you are in a stressful situation? Uh, um, I had a really good time in my little group. Um, One of the things that I shared is that my go-to calming down strategy for stressful situations lately has been really trying to do what I'm recommending in a lot of our workshops. And the go-to thing that we've been doing, well, that I've been doing, is practicing box breathing or just any kind of slow breathing because it really works. But when I first started to try it, I started in like really stressful situation. I was like, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because I hadn't practiced it before. So I'm really trying to do practice what we're recommending. And in my group, also somebody said that she was starting aerial yoga. Sarah was in my group, and I thought that was pretty cool. All right, with that, we're going to move on so that we have time for two presenters today. So like I said, we are going to hear from two recipients from the mini grants program. And the mini grants program is something that we started since WRASAP started because we thought, well, our leader, Don McMorrin, thought if we have all of these partners and then we have some other great opportunities, great projects, we should be able to support them. And that's where we created the mini grants program. It has been going on since 2021. It has funded a lot of different programs, and it has also funded colleagues attending different professional development opportunities. So today we will hear from two recipients. Currently, I should say that the mini grants program is not open, but we are working on reopening it, hopefully by the beginning of the year. So with that, we'll start with, I'm going to do the two introductions and then we'll do the presentations back to back so we can do questions at the end. So first, we're going to hear from Renee Rachel Baker. She is the founder of Nene's Living Food, a Hawaii-based microfarm promoting farm-to-table access, land stewardship, and community wellness. She's guided by Indigenous values. She integrates traditional ecological knowledge and trauma-informed care to support food sovereignty and intergenerational healing. Currently earning her Master's of Social Work at Hawaii Pacific University, Renee brings over a decade of experience in land-based education, mindfulness, and ancestral skills. She's a certified yoga and breathwork instructor with permaculture expertise. She works to empower rural and marginalized communities through regenerative practices and holistic well-being. And second, we're going to hear from Darla Tyler McSherry. She's a nationally recognized advocate and subject matter expert in rural mental health and farmer suicide prevention. Originally from Lonesome Prairie, Montana, she has spent 30 years in higher education, focusing on health and human performance. In 2018, Darla founded Ask in Earnest, a grassroots initiative, which is now a nonprofit. She is dedicated to fostering open, stigma-free conversations about mental health in agricultural communities. She is trained in Question, Persuade, Refer, QPR training, COMET, which is Changing Our Mental and Emotional Trajectory, and CALM, Conversations on Access to Lethal Means. Darla combines cultural understanding, compassion, and practical tools to empower rural communities to ask in earnest and respond with hope. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Renee.
All right, good morning. It's morning here in Hawaii. Good afternoon or evening to everybody else. I will start to share. Is it screen sharing? No.
Not yet.
Okay, there we go.
We can see it now.
Awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick little introduction and then I'll start the video. Hi, my name is Renee. I am the creator of Nene's Living Food. I own a small micro farm in Hana, Hawaii. We focus on making floral teas, and we have a small nursery here on our micro farm. Our added value products were created with the intention of focusing on building our circular economy here on Maui, to promote food security and food sovereignty, extending the shelf life of our harvests. And I am also an environmental and humanitarian advocate with an emphasis in holistic health. I became aware of WRASAP after a training through UH Manoa's College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. Through that initiative called Seeds of Wellbeing, they trained us in QPR, and that training proved to be life-saving in our community over the last 2 years. So super valuable and impactful for me. Through Seeds of Wellbeing, I began to support local farmers and advocate for mental health and wellness in our community. In 2024, we applied for our first mini grant with WRASAP, and we began hosting a women's empowerment workshop. We focused on providing hands-on skills, resources, and connections to support the well-being and success of Indigenous and women farmers. These workshops aimed at bringing different levels of expertise into the room, guiding beginner farmers, mid-level, and expert or multi-generational farmers to talk story about their experiences, share insights, best practices, and deepen connections to one another. Our aim is to provide holistic wellness experiences for Indigenous and women farmers, and we've had the honor of creating a supportive space for those experts to share their stories as farmsteaders, direct-to-consumer product creators, innovators sharing their process of scaling their products all the way to the national level. Facilitating these experts, we support these beginning, mid, and seasoned farmers to bring other truly inspiring women into the room. These speakers who are advocates for farmers also offer resources and services like writing grants and supporting farm projects, including food security and the business side of product development and scaling. They also support boots on the ground with best practices for working on a homestead, and all of our experts have been women run, led, and or owned. We focus on bringing in women who are advocates in cultural preservation to facilitate discussions and share their lived experience as lineage holders and farmsteaders. We also continue to aim at creating this supportive network to share these resources within our community. So I'm going to start that's just a little bit of kind of what we're doing, and I'll start the video if I can figure out how to press play. There we go. This is just some of the people that were part of our group. Hold on, it's not playing. So yeah, this is can you guys see that? Are you guys seeing the slide? Or are you seeing me?
We can see the slide.
Okay, great. So yeah, so we set the stage of each workshop with we first add some self-reflective practices and intentionality for the day, as that sets the stage to hold the space for everybody to connect and begin to just take time together. So the key for these workshops for me is really fostering the relationships with the women who are the boots on the ground, creating space for them to feel valued and supported, to share their wisdom with our coming generation of farmers and ranchers here on Maui. On Maui, we have a myriad of organizations that are really holding that space and doing incredible things, dedicating themselves to supporting farmers and ranchers here. Um, our values in these workshops really focus around facilitating conversations about negative stress and how that can lead to various negative health outcomes. And we discuss how we cope in real life and integrate some of those stress management tools during the workshop. Um, we also talk about uh, the workload as Indigenous and women farmers, as we often wear multiple hats, including farming and household chores and caring for family members. Managing all these roles can definitely lead to burnout and exhaustion. So creating this accessible space to give these farmers an opportunity to receive a massage and these skills building is really important to us. So not only do we take the time to give those skills and that rest and relaxation, but we also add these skills in. And so this is one of the projects that we've done, one of the workshops. Um, Basically, we did a butchering workshop. So um, this is a multi-generational woman. She is our wonderful butcher, and she's a multi-generational homesteader with 5 acres on the North Shore of Maui. Um, we Let me see if I can get the video to play. Darn. Hmm. I can't seem to get the video to come online. Oh, here we go. Okay. Is it playing? There we go. Okay, so yeah, this is Monica Bogar. She has a 5 acre multi-generational homestead on the North Shore of Maui. Her farmstead focuses on regenerative practices, and she was a huge mobilizer in the food distribution for the victims of the Lahaina and Kula fires on Maui. Her experience as a butcher and added value producer on a national scale was a real gift to the project. We were given an in-kind donation to use a facility to host a nose to tail series that included field dressing of a sheep, a butchering lesson focusing on USDA protocol, premium cuts, and hoof to tail uses. We finally hosted a cooking class where we also added in food preservation concepts and skills building as we shared recipes and exchanged how to cook and prepare these different cuts of sheep. And at the end of the series, we offered some self-regulation, breathing techniques, and sound healing. And then we set up a luxurious open air 1 hour massage and finished with a sauna and hot tub experience overlooking the ocean. So some of these women have never had massages before. They're true homestead women, um, boots on the ground all the time. So giving that to them was a real treat. Um, Gathering and sharing our thoughts at the end of the day, spending time in good company and really taking time to just take time is, I think, as holistic as it gets. We created this workshop, and we really focused on using the grant funds to buy locally and support our local women farmers. So most of the food that we use, not most, but all of the food, nearly all of it was farm to table. So we tried to make sure that everything was actually grown on Maui, and what wasn't, it was baked or created on Maui. So all of our funds went to buy locally, supporting those women farmers in retail stores. We also hired women practitioners and facilitators, again, creating that support of the women in our community and really taking time to acknowledge the superb practices of these women farmers and using our dollars to show that through our purchasing power. Um, so yeah, basically throughout these workshops, we really focus the whole time on this holistic practice, but um, we've done a couple. So that was a series that we did, and then the next series that we did, if it shows on this. Okay, now we're gonna press this one. So this is another series, again with an in-kind donation for the facility use. But we brought together this time a, a mother and daughter team who they've got 40 years of practice in weaving. So they help to share traditional methods of weaving Hawaiian style. And we went out into the land and we foraged all these different kinds of things to build these baskets. And um, essentially, we made little egg baskets and little drying racks. So using the local materials to support creating things that we can use on our homesteads. Um, and again, the conversation, this one was definitely more culturally focused because these women have been weaving for 40 years in a traditional way. So there was a lot more of that involved. And we plan on continuing doing our workshops with more support. And so the idea is to keep doing these butchering and hunting and archery, as well as basic building workshops for chicken coops and farm stands. Also, farm maintenance tools, farm tool maintenance, and food preservation workshops. So just continuing having those abilities for our farmers to get their products out with their farm stand buildings or to create new added value products with their food preservation workshops and just giving them extra tools for that tool maintenance and keeping their families fed with butchering and hunting. So thank you so much to WRASAP for these are just some pictures of this was Monica's sauce and it had national recognition, so she's on the national level. This is just another product picture from some of our uh, farmers, and this is a list of, where the fruit and farm comes from. Um, that's a picture of our wonderful hosts. So yeah, thank you guys. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. It's been a really awesome experience to be able to give back to our farmers and yeah, the mini grants have been super supportive and we hope to keep going.
Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing. That was really wonderful. I really appreciated all the pictures, and I thought it was just so creative the way that you used the produce and the meats as part of the skill buildings part of the actual workshops. That I think that was really neat and utilizing all of the produce um, in a very creative way to also build those skills and doing all of those hands-on activities. Thank you so much. So with that, we'll turn it over to Darla for her second presentation. And we'll do questions at the end.
Thanks, Esme. And you can see this, yes? Okay,
Yes, we
great.
can see it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just echoing what Renee said, I'm just so grateful for WRASAP and the opportunities that it creates for us to make a difference on the ground in these frontier rural states and in the communities. So I wanted to share with you my experience with being able to deliver Comet to the rural Montana agricultural communities. Yeah, let me get my screen to advance. So a little bit of background about what is Ask in Earnest. My dad was a wheat farmer and he was born on the farm. And my brother and I were raised in the farmhouse that he was born in. And it's a real place, Lonesome Prairie, Montana. And my dad farmed his entire life. And he was born on the farm and he died on the farm at his own hands. And I can honestly say that I never knew such awfulness could exist, but now I know that it does with losing someone so close to suicide. And in the days after his death, I was talking with his friend Ray, and he said, when your dad was in town walking down the street and he saw you, he would stop and he would ask in earnest how you were doing. And he wasn't doing it to be nosy or gossipy or get in your business. He just really cared about how you and your family were doing. And that was one of the most beautiful things anyone has ever said to me about my dad. And that was true. He would stop and ask in earnest how you were doing. So that phrase really stuck with me. So I founded the initiative in 2018 because I did not know how much of an issue mental health, depression, and suicide is for the farm and ranch population until my dad died. So I founded the work in 2018, and then tragedy continued to enter my life. I founded the initiative, and literally months later, my husband passed away very unexpectedly. 7 months after losing my dad, I lost my mom, and then COVID hit. And so it took a lot, but here I am today, still doing it. And I've now achieved nonprofit status as of last year. And so the goal, the whole initiative of Ask in Earnest is to raise awareness, educate, and advocate for farmer and rancher health and well-being. So I can be credited with or accused of both photos. That's the handiwork of me for both photos. So I share this photo when I'm doing presentations with farmers because on the left is kind of like the picture of what it's like farming when your days are going right. You know what? You fill the bin up to the top without spilling a kernel, no breakdowns, the crop is running well, good weather, like when everything is just lining up and going well. And then there's other times when farming is very much more on the right side of the screen, when you turn your back for literally a moment, and then you start to notice that the grain auger is making this weird sound. And then you turn back and you see, you know what, you've got a whole bunch of money that just spilled onto the ground. And yes, I did have to clean that up. I didn't get any help to do that, nor should I have. So that's an illustration of what happens when breakdowns occur, when hailstorms hit, when grasshoppers invade, when your crop has disease, when your markets are in the toilet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So farmers and ranchers very much have both scenarios. And what I try to do is help farmers and ranchers when they're on the right side of the screen and like, okay, so this is really hard. What can we do to make it through these tougher times? So the why of why I chose to submit this project for an application for WRASAP funding, the best statement is really, really simple, and it's really, really profound in my opinion. My best friend, who is a retired Chief Master Sergeant from the U.S. Air Force, Dave Nordell, in talking about suicide and farming and ranching in Montana, he said, what we've been doing in the past 40 years hasn't worked, and it's time to do something different. And I could not agree more. Some data about Montana and suicide. We're typically number one or number two in the nation for suicide rates. Unfortunately, our partners in Wyoming and Alaska know this all too well. We're always up in the top three. We just flip-flop. places, and Montana has been in the top 5 for the past 40 years. We also know that nationwide and in our territories, our farmers suffer disproportionate rates of suicide in comparison to the general population. And what COMET does is that it offers a different approach. It encourages and helps us with skills and tools that I'll talk about in a minute. It helps us swim upstream before the crisis and do what I think is true prevention work. So my objectives for the grant is I wanted to raise awareness about mental health issues in the farm and ranch population in rural communities in north central, northeastern, and south central Montana. I said I wanted to help decrease stigma surrounding mental health and increase help-seeking behaviors surrounding mental health, especially depression and suicide. And I said I wanted to deliver the COMET training, which utilizes evidence-based techniques to 7 communities in those areas of Montana. So for those of you who aren't familiar with COMET, it stands for Changing Our Mental and Emotional Trajectory. What is nice about this, it's really developed for the rural population, and it's developed by people from the rural population. It really touches on those the relationships in our communities with neighbor helping neighbor. And we know that those relationships are so important in surviving farming and ranching and living in those small rural communities. It empowers friends and neighbors to be more prepared to support mental health needs, especially before the crisis. And here's what's nice about COMET. Again, this is my opinion. It takes the pressure off. I think and you spend a lot of time in the COMET training reminding people, educating people that you don't have to be the fix, but you're going to learn some skills and techniques to how to be supportive and how in the heck do I start a conversation with someone that I'm concerned about, but we're all from a farm and ranch community. And one of the things or a tenet of being a good neighbor is taking care of your land, taking care of your fences, taking care of your weeds, taking care of your animals. Be a good neighbor and mind your own business. What COMET does is it gives you permission, what I say, how I frame it, as to take one step out of that comfort zone and ask someone, how are you doing, really? The questions are built around evidence-based techniques and evidence-based techniques, using lay educators, mindfulness, and motivational interviewing techniques. So here is a summary of what I was able to accomplish in this past spring. So I won't read each line for line, but to give you an overall, the location, so the first one was Billings, and you might think, well, that's not rural, Darla. How did that tie into what you're doing? I presented the COMET training as part of this conference, and the connection to the rural community is that conference, many of those participants are prevention specialists who are working in this 11-county region in Montana that is very rural. So they were exposed to the COMET training. The next 2 I combined, and you'll get an idea of the visuals in the next slide. Dutton and Shoto, you can see the populations of being very rural. Partnering with with the county health departments, and in this case, the library. Big Sandy, which is my hometown outside of Lonesome Prairie. What I did there is I partnered up with our volunteer fire and ambulance crew and the Senior Citizens Center, and I'll talk about successes in a few slides. One thing that this grant showed me is think outside the box with who you can partner with in those small towns. In Havre, what was really nice is using some existing relationships I had. with with a mental health counselor up there who used to be involved in higher education too. I was able to coordinate with their LAC, and we hosted a half-day mini conference on mental health for the farm and ranch population. And that was really exciting because there was some great energy and great knowledge shared. Um, and that was just a great thing. And then the last one, I was able to connect with the Crow Agency Health Department and trained up people down in Hardin. So this next slide oh, shows you a little visual, and I apologize, you might not be able to see that very well, but the yellow highlighted areas show you where the COMET trainings took part that were funded through the WRASAP. So if you see down more in the bottom, a little bit to the right, that larger circle, so that's the Billings area. I'm from Shepherd. So you see Billings, and then to the immediate right, that next circle is Hardin. And then at the top of the state is Havre. That second yellow dot is Big Sandy. And then the two on the furthest left are Dutton and Shoto. So with this training, I did over 1,600 miles. And so I was able to cover quite a bit of the state. And some of the data that I was able to get out of this, so pre-post data from 6 trainings that I was able to do. And I won't read each line for line, but one question was, how likely are you to tell someone that you've noticed a change in their mood or behavior? You'll see pre and post test data. We definitely moved people in the direction that we're hoping to see, with fewer people saying somewhat likely and more people saying likely and very likely in the post test. Second one, how likely are you to invite family or friend to tell you more about a potentially emotional situation? Again, we're chipping away at that stigma that surrounds mental health in these rural populations, right? We're giving permission for people to take one step outside of their comfort zone and say, tell me more, what's going on? Again, we're getting people more on the right side of the chart with saying, yeah, we're seeing increases in people being likely or very likely to approach someone about that. Last question, how likely are you to invite an acquaintance or a coworker to tell you more about a potentially emotional situation? Again, we saw data moving in the direction that indicates, yeah, people are going to be more willing to have these conversations. And all of this on this call know that we can literally save lives with initiating a conversation. Some demographic data is the people who attended these trainings, 78% female, 20% male, 2% non-binary, 80% Caucasian, and 20% Native American. Some data from the COMET website. They have found that through these trainings, 78% said they were more likely to tell someone that they've noticed a change in their mood or behavior. 81% said they were more likely to invite an acquaintance or a coworker to talk about a potentially emotional situation. And 74% said they were more likely to use COMET questions in the next 3 months. So one thing that I was not sure of when I first took the COMET training, if there's probably lots of us on here who are certified QPR, mental health first aid instructors. In the COMET training, we never mentioned the S word. We never mentioned suicide. And I struggled with that for a long time because I kind of feel like it's the elephant in the room. If you're going to talk about mental health and farming and ranching, you have to talk about suicide. What I've found and what I've seen has been a really nice thing about COMET is that if you are not having a lot of luck with QPR or mental health first aid, COMET is a great place to start because it introduces people to the idea of having a conversation about mental health before the crisis situation. So what I've done in some communities is I've done COMET first, and then I've gone back and done QPR. So I think it's been very, very helpful. Just a few photos to share, on the road, part of the 1,600 miles of being able to be, feet on the ground in rural Montana, which is how we are going to make a difference, in my opinion. Yeah, the photo on the left, up in Shoto, lots of dirt roads, lots of back miles, the wind turbines, and my trusty co-pilot, Rudy. And successes. So my successes were I was able to do 6 trainings in a 2-month period. Again, I was really happy and very pleased about doing these trainings in rural Montana. The pre-post data indicates they found the training worthwhile. Some extra bonuses. It's opened the door for continued collaborations. I'm going to go back to Shoto for a couple events in January with the Golden Triangle Crop Seminar and the Rooted in Resilience Farmer Health Conference. Because of an initial training I did in Fromberg, I was able to do a training, and this happened outside of the WRASAP grant, but I was able and still able to get into some school systems with the teachers going through the COMET training. Yeah, the project helped me discover new partners in small communities. I was originally trying to target volunteer fire and ambulance crews. That always didn't work, but then I did find success with librarians and senior citizens centers. So that was a good learning lesson for me. And again, it's helped open the doors to bringing other trainings to those communities, such as CALM and hopefully QPR. The challenges and the lessons learned, and that's from a farm. A farmer not far from where we farm does a lot of incredible photography, and that's his farm in the middle of the winter. Some areas have been and just continue to be really difficult to reach, including just locally. Very short story, very locally, there's a family that lost 2 children to suicide, 2 teenagers to suicide. I've tried to reach out to the school system. I know other certified QPR facilitators have tried to reach out to that school system or to the community, and it's just closed door, just no luck at all. But it doesn't mean that we're going to quit trying. We just have to continue to try. I lesson learned I needed to be more persistent in locking in dates sooner. I got a lot of trainings done in a very short period of time. I was against calving season at the beginning of the grant cycle, and I was against spring seeding at the end of the cycle. So lesson learned on that. And as a challenge, I think all of us can appreciate is progress is being made in regards to conversations about mental health and farming, yet much work remains. And my last slide, and this is always the most heartfelt slide, and the hardest one for me is because that's the last picture I have of my family intact. I'm sitting next to my dad, and that's my mom behind me and my brother. And so it's a bittersweet photo. So what I want to continue to do is educate and advocate for farmer and rancher health and well-being, listen to farmers and help build what's most helpful, continue the social media campaigns, and continue to bring trainings to the farm and ranch community. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Darla, for sharing um, this sincere work. I know we are always so grateful for what you're doing and sharing how this training that it really was developed in Colorado, developed by community members and researchers, can be applied to other areas of the West or wherever we're working, and learning how your experience went and how this was really like an opening door to some of the other trainings that might be a little bit harder to implement. So if you guys have any questions, you can come off mute or you can put your questions right on the chat. I do have a question for you, Darla, and it's like, how do you plan to to maybe go back and see how some of these individuals are utilizing the training. I know you said you're coming back to do additional trainings, but have you had any contact with anybody that you train and has perhaps found the training useful or how they have utilized it?
That's a great question. Shoto will give me the opportunity to do that in January, but I think as one example, the organic conversations and the energy and the enthusiasm from that mini mental health conference in Havre was so incredible. I do want to follow up with them about what's the next step. So yeah, that's a good opportunity for me. Can I say absolutely today what the feedback is or the follow-up is? I don't have that, but it's a good next step for me. I think it's indicative though of people, I'm getting inquiries about doing COMET in other areas. So I think that the word is slowly getting out. I think there's just maybe some challenges going on right now with maybe some funding or time of year. But definitely, I think there's an appetite for continuing this conversation and trainings in rural Montana.
Yeah, and I think also with some of these mini grants, they're short. They're usually
Mhm.
taken in a period of about 6 months or a year. Might not be right the timing to see some of the sprouting of the seeds that you have planted with the training, but I think you'll hear about them and we'll get to hear about those too. We are seeing some great comments in the chat for you. It's inspiring to see, Oliver says, it's inspiring to see you honoring your journey and creating new pathways for care, connection, and healing. Thanks for sharing, Darla. Wonderful evaluation data, great work, cute co-pilot. I agree with all of those. Um, any other questions that we might have? Because I have one for Renee in the meantime.
Can we get the two presenters to share their email in the chat?
We'll have them share their presentation. I mean their email in the chat. And you'll also get a recording of this in the beginning of the week. And Renee, just very quickly, I wanted to ask you in the process of you coming up with these workshops, are you putting them together on your own, or are you finding that like the participants are also getting in there and becoming leads and putting the workshops together?
Yeah, that's a kind of an interesting conversation. I definitely facilitate putting them together, but as things are growing and there's also been funding for connecting with other organizations. So I work with another organization called Maui Farmers Network. So we're just continuing that. And so other organizations are kind of modeling this project in the sense that using the QPR training, the mental health first aid, and this training that we got from Seeds of Wellbeing out of UH Manoa, and offering more workshops for farmers. And so, yes, it's kind of being facilitated outside of me, and then I also facilitate and curate who's able to like, just make that supportive system to bring in whoever. It's difficult in Hawaii because we have a lot of different bottlenecks, different things that would hinder people coming together, right? There's a lot of nuanced challenges besides it being rural, and besides people not having time because they're working on their farms. There's just a lot of cultural, impasses, I think, too. So really getting the word out there. And I think I love that she's using Comet. I think that's a great bridge because I think the QPR and the mental health first aid training is a little bit farther out of reach for some of our community members, whereas maybe this is a little bit more relational, a little bit more uh workable. And I love that it's evidence-based. So like Darla said, it kind of takes the pressure off and you can just let it do its thing. So anyway, this has been super helpful for me to be part of this conversation and see what other people are in action doing. So thank you so much.
Of course, there's always opportunity to grow from one another, learn, and that's why we have this space to have that conversation. So now I'm going to jump into some quick announcements. So we are offering still through the network question, persuade, refer online trainings. These are offered through our partners at Oregon State University. You can find all the information on those at farmstress.us under the events tab. Another event that is coming up in Colorado is the Colorado Agricultural Behavioral Health Summit. Again, all of the information on that is at farmstress.us. This event will take place on November 13th through 14th. And it's an in-person summit for organizations with an interest in promoting and providing behavioral health care in agricultural rural communities. So with that, I'd really like to thank both of our presenters for sharing their stories with us today. And thank you, each of you for attending today, because it's been great. And if any of you want to apply for a mini grant, like I said, our application process will open up. We're thinking in January. So Darla gave us a really good framework of how to apply. Comment if that's something that you'd like to apply for in your area. Thank you, everyone.